so we have another amazing guest with us today. We have Louise Serio. And so Louise, she's been in the industry for a long time. She started when she was younger from her mother getting her involved during shows. And then later on, when she turned 30, Louise started her own business. She wanted to become a 2-time winner of the World Champion Hunter Rider competition. She rides and trains champions in every division, major East Coast horse shows. And she was a respected horse judge and a health founder of the American Hunter Jumper Foundation and the WCHR program. In 2012, she was inducted in the National Show Hall of Fame. And horses continue to be a family business. So Louise lives near her family compound, you could say, at the Derby Downs stables in Kennett Square. And her daughter Chrissy is a riding professional, and her son TR is also a farrier. So that's really cool. You got to keep it in the family from your work with the horses too. So thank you so much, Louise, for joining us today.
Well, you're welcome. And I'd like to say too that my granddaughter also is here with us on the farm, and she rides hunters, barrel racing, and she's learning to rope. My daughter-in-law is a barrel racer, so we have all kinds of horses here. It's really quite cool.
You guys are just, it's like a family, like tradition. That's amazing. That's really cool.
It's fun because the hunters go away about 4 o'clock, or the show horses, and then the cowboys arrive. So they have the evenings here.
Oh, nice. That's cool. So in the mornings and the evenings, you've got to go out for all times. So it sounds like your mom was really the original starter of this tree. Is that about right?
She was. She taught riding and built the first indoor ring in the area. She was quite a great role model to me. She was a single mother with 2 daughters, and she worked very hard and raised us well. And we all lived right here on this farm then too.
Wow, that's amazing. So that's great that, you were in that great environment and you kind of grew up just loving horses in that sense. So
yes,
awesome.
My sister and I, yep.
So your farm, you do quite a bit there, and it sounds like you call it the compound, the family compound. So can you tell me a little bit more about your farm?
My farm is very old. The house was part of the Underground Railroad. And this is a very Quaker area, so it was very sympathetic to the slaves. Then the barn burned about 150 years ago, so it's been rebuilt, and it's about 150 years old now. We have 2 outdoor rings, 5 large fields, and about 9 paddocks. We have a walker and a treadmill. We have a very nice facility here.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and quite a bit of history too. So, wow, that's really cool.
Thank you.
Well, I'm so happy that you're available to share some of your tips with us. Our topic of just keeping your animal athlete first and the sport second, and I know that's something that's very important to you and your family on your facility. So, if you don't mind, do you mind sharing some tips? For example, maybe something that you see in the industry that you wish could be changed, or something that you notice that you can do to improve, like people can improve?
So to keep your animals first and foremost, you have to be their biggest advocate, because it's hard when you have a very strong schedule and you have a client that's really wants to get into a qualifying horse show and the horse is a little bit on the edge, and it's just so important that you represent the horse more than the client. And it gets hard. It takes experience, and it takes developing a relationship with the clients that they trust you to know when to stop. I think that our schedules have gotten a little bit better for the horses or for qualifying. I think we all feel a little stress when you stay home. You make your living really at horse shows. So you have to always be measuring how much showing you're doing and how much you're staying home and how much you're doing with the horses.
Yeah, so that's a big part of it too. I imagine when you're traveling and you're, yes, it's for fun, but you're traveling and it's expensive to travel. So keeping all that in mind, and not putting so much stress on the horse because it's just a sport, all in all, and you're doing it to better yourself. And it sounds like, yeah, you're keeping that in mind of just the timing, like how much time and knowing when to say enough is
Yeah.
enough. So that sounds like a really important topic in the industry.
And I'm blessed with good clients that I think that you develop those clienteles or those clients, or they come to you because they know you're the horse's advocate and that you really try to make sure that the horse comes first. And I think you develop those relationships early on, and you start when you get a new client to explain that. And they really appreciate that because they really do love their animals.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, great. Absolutely. So you want to make sure to stand up for the horse when, it is quite a jumble out there when all these shows are going on, and then like you plan it with timing and making sure it's all organized, and it can be a lot going on. So just keeping the horse first in that sense of, knowing when to stop, and as an advocate. So that's, as a trainer, it's like a number one thing you need to have on for people to understand that you're proud to say.
Yeah.
So
the other part of that too, though, is that when you purchase a horse for someone, you want to make sure that it's very suitable so that it's easier to get the points, and that you also purchase one that is sound. Soundness has become harder and harder. It's hard to keep our horses sound without injuries. Right. So it's really important to start in a place with your horse that you're comfortable with, could go forward and continue with the schedule that you'd like to do.
Right. And when you say getting a horse that's sound, that's a big topic in not only just the horse industry, but dogs too. But so we've had a couple experts on here talk about soundness. And I know some of us touch base on like pre-checkups, like vet checkups before purchasing, a pre-purchase exam and things like that. Just maybe at your stables, do you mind sharing kind of how your remedy for keeping horses sound?
Well, one of the things that we do here is I have lots of turnout, and then I try to have the horses do something 3 times a day, because fitness is really important, especially with the warm bloods now. Mm-hmm. So they all, or most all of them, go in the paddock, and then they either go on my walker or my treadmill, and they're ridden. So they're not just in their stalls all the time. So that, I think that really helps keeping them fit, keeping them moving, and that's the way they were kind of intended to be. Mm-hmm. The problem right now is we have so much grass because of the rain that they can't stay out quite as much because they get fat too easily. But so that's kind of their schedule every day, is they get to do something 3 times a day. That's
really good, actually. And you're so right about that. A lot of times, and especially in the jumble of things of going into competition, like the horses are in their stalls a lot. So just to keep it on mind to always take them out, and 3 times a day, that sounds like a great amount of time, to give them even just physical but mental stimulation out of their stall and intention. So that's really cool you guys do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when you get, like, for example, trying to get a sound horses for your clients, do you do anything else besides a vet checkup that can help, determine if it's going to be a good fit? Do you look at the breeding or anything like that? Depending, some breeds might be more prone to lameness or soft hooves or anything like that by chance. Well, I think you have to really trust your veterinarian, because there are a lot of things that horses can live with too. You can't just eliminate them because there's a little bit of this or a little bit of that. I think that one of the most important things is to buy a horse that's structurally correct, so that they have a good size bone and they have a good quality foot. My son, being a farrier, reminds me of that all the time. But it's really important that, that old saying, no foot, no horse. Yeah. So the more structural soundness they are, I think the longer they last. Yeah, absolutely. And like conformation wise, just all around. Yes. And like what you were saying too, like they can live with some things.
Oh.
For example, like history on a horse, say maybe they've had a previous job or something like that, and it's strain on other parts of the body that don't affect maybe jumping, the muscles and tendons and things that will necessarily affect jumping in a new career, something like that. So I don't know if you run into that quite often. Um,
A little bit. I mean, I think that the one thing is nowadays we check their histories. Did they have a big break in their show record, or was their time off that would indicate an injury? And then we also think ahead a little bit about, again, their show schedule. And I think that when you trust your veterinarian and you get a horse that's coming from another world, they also understand that that horse can live with it.
And sometimes, hopefully, it just depends on the case by case scenarios, but arthritis can, with a great vet, they can be fixable, depending on treatment and things like that, injections or glucosamine and things like that. But you're right. So sometimes you just got to find out where the arthritis is and how much the effect is from the sport to the happiness of the quality of life for the horse. If they're not, happy and it hurts them, I can see how that could be a problem.
We now are way better at keeping horses sound than we were when I started in this business. The veterinarians, the medications, the injections, the acupuncture, the chiropractor, the magnetic blankets, the P3s, I mean, the ice, we spend a lot of time with our horses making sure they're as comfortable as possible, and they get the benefit of all those things. Yeah. So there are horses that have existing x-rays that are a little funny, but they're really comfortable, and the vets are doing a great job keeping them going.
Right. And like you just said, like there's so many new avenues and ways of prevention or just correction. And so it's amazing how things have changed over time of what we can do for our animals. And like even laser therapy, I've heard, that kind of stuff. And there's all types out there. So it's amazing how we can help the animals work with us in that sense too. So really.
Yeah, the other thing that's so important now is our footing. We've learned what good footing is for our horses.
Yeah.
And we're still, unfortunately, lunging for the hunters is a bit of a way of life. And we're trying to encourage and make the horse shows not only do good footing for the rings and the schooling areas, but for the lunging areas too. So
yeah.
But footing has gotten to be paramount. You basically do your schedule around where the footing is good.
Right. And you're not the first person to mention that. It's very important. It sounds like, and I know that too, but I mean, it's definitely a topic that people are discussing. And I ask them, like, what is the most important? Footing is a big one that comes up. What do you recommend, like, for footing? So let's just say, there's a lot of expensive footing out there, but if you were on a budget or something like that, what's a great footing that people can just start out with if they had the best they could, without going too expensive?
I would guess that the best thing to do would be a stone dust base with a little sand on top. You have to give it a little slide. The stone dust will get really hard.
Okay.
So you put a little sand on the top of that, an inch or inch and a half of that, and that gives them a little cushion. I mean, that's kind of what we did 15 years ago, and it was okay. And now we have all the new fancy footing. I have that here on my farm, and I have to say it takes a lot of maintenance because it takes water and dragging, which we do every day anyhow, but you can fluff it or you can make it hard. The rain now tightens it up instead of making it sloppier and deeper. So that's really made a big difference too.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And drainage is a big part of it. The stone dust with the sand, there's no drainage in that. Now, one of the biggest expenses is the drainage that you put under the footing. So.
I see. Yeah, and I imagine, like, even you say putting sand on there, does that help bring down the dust at all, would you say? Or is it kind of just, it is what it is?
You mean for the budget footing?
Yeah, the budget footing.
No, I think you're going to have some dust.
Okay. Just curious on that. You know, you get what you get. So, but yeah, footing is a big topic too. So speaking of which, you said like lunging is a really important thing for hunter jumpers too. What would you do, like a daily routine, bringing a horse out, getting them ready and for, yeah, training? What's a common day look like?
At a horse show or?
Just practicing, like when you're at your facility and getting ready for a show.
So they get fed, 7 a.m. They're having their food. The horses that go out all night come right in. Then the stalls are starting to get done, and we start to ride. And every horse, every day, there's a list made so that the next day you know who's getting ridden by whom, what time they're coming. Then you schedule your lessons or your rides. We have about 28 horses. We're finished by close to noontime with all the clients that can when they're all here and come and ride. And then I have my daughter and another girl, Rachel, who rides for me. So we're finished fairly early. And we do the horses all morning, and then we do a little farm work in the afternoon. We have to do all the mowing and the dragging and the watering of the ring and setting new courses or packing for a horse show. And there's always something to do.
Right. There's always something to do at a farm. Is that a true thing? So, yeah, I mean, gosh, that's awesome that you guys can finish, I'm sure, like before noon, before it gets too hot, hopefully, and before the weather gets crazy. So, for example, I'm just curious, like you say you lunge, so like you would lunge first and then you'd ride. Is that kind of the process, or how would you go? Or do you like have you said you had a like a track or like a hot walker, is that right?
Well, we don't lunge them at home. I mean,
Oh,
only at
okay.
the horse
Okay.
shows. Okay, occasionally we'll have to do something, but no, we don't lunge at home. And
Oh,
the walker is one of the new exercisers with the cover over it and stuff. So they walk on that, but no lunging at home. Very
okay.
seldom, unless something's wild and needs to buck and play. But no.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I was just curious, your process of maybe like, so let's just say you have a new horse and you're just getting them into the groove of things. What would the routine look like when you bring them in to start building a relationship with them?
I think basically getting them into the schedule. They're creatures of habit, so they want to know what's happening and when, and they, when they're getting fed, when they're going out, when they're getting ridden. And then we just take our time letting him. We just had one arrive last night, and he's just settling in. He went on the walker this morning. He'll go down. We'll get on him in a little bit later, and see how he is, and just kind of let him fit into whatever makes them the most comfortable.
Right. Keeping them comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's great. I was just curious, your process on that too. So.
And it's different, it depends on the age of the horse, the experience. The one that just got here is a 4-year-old. He hasn't done much at all. So you don't just hop on and take off. You make sure that he's quiet, and he probably will go on the lunge rope for a few minutes with some tack on and make sure he's okay. And then somebody will get on and go for a little ride and just get him acclimated. So.
Yeah, get him acclimated and just fitting in. So that's great. So on your property, do you guys do any kind of outside work, or is it mostly in the arena?
I have a field we have a field that we ride in. Growing up here, we rode all over this area, but people now don't really want you on their property anymore riding around. So we have a field called the Mile Hill where you can go up and walk around that, and you can ride in one of the fields every day if you want to.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I have two outdoor rings so that you can always find a place if I'm doing lessons or something.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of space on your property. That's really nice and relaxing, I'm sure, just to have your own space and like zen. That's my vision of zen, just getting out there. Awesome. So I know we kind of touch base on like having footing as an important feature for horses. Would you say that's the most important thing? Like if you were on a budget, what would you invest in for your horses? That's like the most imperative thing that you could do for them.
With footing?
Well, I mean, we already touched base on footing. I wasn't sure if in your opinion, if that's the most important thing you can invest in for your horse?
I think probably good daily care and somebody paying attention and making sure that they're getting the proper food and turnout, the proper exercise, the just the general care is super important. The facility being safe and nice, and for sure you want good footing. That's awesome. But if not all places can afford the fancy stuff, as long as it's well kept, drug, and not too deep or not too hard, I think you're fine.
That's good. Okay, I was just curious to see on that. So yeah, footing is a big important one too. So, well, hey, I was reading an article that you had about so for a horse taking off that changes gait before they do the jump, and having them not change gait so you don't change their rhythm on that. Do you mind talking a little bit about how we can help them go straight into a jump?
You mean as far as the riders, what they need?
Yeah, how we can help our horses like just do a good ride, and from as much as we can help them in that sense.
Well, there's a lot to go into that, but I think making sure that your horse is well broken, that understands what you want, and then you as a rider communicate well with what you want your horse to do. Most of the time, communication kind of breaks down. They also like consistency. You want to ask the same way every time, not suddenly change your ride or change everything. And that happens with some of the more nervous riders when they go in the ring, but you really want to try to be consistent with them so that they can trust what you're saying. As far as the changing of pace before a jump, it depends on the distance you're looking at, but you're always trying to have the same strides and having the jump come up right in stride and land, having your horse kind of land in exactly the same frame as it left the ground, not going too fast or too slow.
Yeah.
And that's all, it all goes back to flat work usually, to making sure that they lengthen, shorten, they have their lateral work, that their mouth works well, that your leg is educated enough to not tell them the wrong thing, that you really want to focus on what they feel from you. So.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, those are some good tips too, about, just jumping, and just, you said like it's the flat work that you really need to work on. And then it's just an extension for the jumping. And I think a lot of people, not everybody, but they get really excited to just start doing the jumping. And they forget that flat work is the foundation of where it all comes from, and safety too, like making sure you are in control and in balance with your horse before doing the jumps, because it can get pretty dangerous pretty quick, from my understanding too. So
yes, for sure, you're exactly right.
Yeah. Would you have any like exercises, like a basic exercise that would help people help with balance with their horse by chance?
I think there's a very simple exercise people can do on a daily basis, and that is to stand in your 2-point and to be able to balance up there without touching the neck, to be able to stay forward, to be able to, it puts the weight down your heels, it centers your body, it keeps the same amount of pressure on each side. It's such a simple exercise, and it's so good for people to do.
Do you do that at all gaits, or what do you recommend?
Mostly at the trot. It's harder at the trot. So, walk and trot. The canter's easier because you're kind of in your 2-point anyway.
That's true.
But you just stand in your stirrups and really feel how it lengthens your leg, and feel how it centers your upper body and your eyes. And it, if you're off balance, you're going to get back to balance, and then make your habits from that.
Yeah. So that's a good one. I've heard that when I was in Colorado too, and that was a great tip. It's so easy too. It's just like, well, all you got to do is just sit up,
And you can go from there. You can, put one hand behind your back, one on your head. You can, do all those things that's going to just help with your balance. The most important thing I think you learn starting out is to put the weight in your heel, and that's going to help make everything else go much easier. So
yeah, heels down, as they say. So I mean, everyone that's like the main motto of riding.
Eyes up and you're good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So great. Well, we're running a little close to our time. Do you have any other takeaways, like maybe a tip that you wish you knew starting out that you now know that we could share with the, the viewers?
Well, things have changed so much in our business from when I started as a kid doing this. The first thing is the cost of things. There's just out of control.
Yeah.
But I think that I don't know that I have a tip, but it really has changed our world. The more participation in our sport. I think there's a lot of people. The other thing I think that changed a lot is it used to be you would start at one level horse show and then you would move up. Now most of those horse shows have levels for everybody. You can be a beginner rider and go to go to Wellington and show down there. And I think that we need to go back a little bit to the levels so that you really firm things up. And as far as a professional goes, I think it's better if you start at those lower levels and make all the mistakes, because you're definitely going to make mistakes. We all have.
Right.
Then move up the ranks. But everybody kind of wants to start at the top now.
Yeah, things have changed. You're right. Just you can just go into classes like that without working your way up into it, like earning it almost.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think it's going to come up quite a bit in the future too. I know it is a hot topic for FEI and things like that. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to see, what happens in the future just on that topic too. So. Great. Well, thank you so much, Louise, for your time and your tips on all these different things we can do with our horses and to be safe. We touched a lot of stuff here. Helping people with building a good relationship, to soundness, and even footing too. So, yeah, thank you so much. We'll be in touch. And if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. I also have Louise's link on our next to this video, so you can visit her on her website. Yeah, so I hope you have a great day.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.